today I'm going to talk to you about pancakes. And I want you to think about what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear pancakes. For me, it's fluffy, with chocolate chips melted coming out the sides, with some butter and syrup. And that, to me, brings back memories when my kids were little on a Saturday morning and everyone in their pajamas. And today I'm going to talk to you about something that you do every day with family and friends, and that's eat. And something that I do every day is talk about what other people eat. And the reason that I do that is because I'm a registered dietitian, and that is what I do on a daily basis. But something to think about dietitians is that we are not the food police. That's often a misconception. What I want to do is take you on a journey, a food journey with me, and I want you to come for a meal together. And I want you to picture yourself walking into the kitchen at a family meal, and there's lots of people there. There's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of smells, there's a lot going on. Could be a little bit chaotic. Do you smell that? Some melted cheese, a little bit of warm pasta, some mac and cheese is being cooked. We also might be smelling some undertones of some apples and cinnamon, and that would be Nana Nancy's apple pie. Love that crisp crust. That is a delicious smell. I also want you to just picture the moment. Is it peaceful? Is it calm? Again, is it chaotic but also enjoyable? Now we're going to pick out our food. We're going to go around and we're going to get some mac and cheese. Maybe we'll get some chicken tenders. I'm going to grab some of the broccoli. It's a nice bright green color, not the army green color like that's usually when I make it. We're going to get a dessert. We'll grab the dessert. Why not? Let's get the thick, rich chocolate chip brownie that Jenny made. We're going to eat that. Now we're going to go sit down. And I want you to take a minute, and as you're about to eat that first bite of mac and cheese with a little bit of that green broccoli on there, Aunt Sally from across the table says, "You gonna eat all that?" Well, I was. I'm not really sure. I mean, not now. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. Okay. Then that guilt sets in. We start to feel guilty. Why? Because someone asked us a question about how much we're going to eat. Yes, that is why. That happens. We start to feel guilty about that. And what do you do with that question? Okay, I could answer that question with maybe, but most likely you would sit there in silence, taking it in, thinking, why would she ask me that question? I was going to eat all this. I wasn't sure. Actually, maybe I wasn't. I'm not really sure. But now you're questioning whether or not you should. But you're thinking, but I usually just eat till I'm full and satisfied. But now I'm not sure I know when I'm going to be full and satisfied. Now I'm not sure I even know. I'm not really sure. So something you want to think about with those comments is that it has an impact. And what you want to think about, too, is that these types of comments can create an unhealthy relationship with food and can create more stress and anxiety around food. And some statistics I want to share with you is that 1 in 4 children have disordered eating. And although disordered eating is not a true clinical eating disorder, they have done research to show that those type of disordered eating behaviors actually lead to adulthood eating disorders. And with adulthood eating disorders, something else I want to share with you is that 9% of Americans will suffer from an eating disorder in their life. And that may not sound like a lot, 9%, but when you talk about it this way, it's 28.8 million people, and that is a lot of people. And something else to think about with that is that eating disorders do not discriminate. So anyone can suffer from an eating disorder, whether it's race, gender, age, it doesn't matter. With all that being said, why do we feel guilty about the foods that we choose? Why do we have those feelings around it? Is it because as a society, we tend to put our foods into categories, good, bad, healthy, unhealthy? Makes it easier to put things in a nice, neat box. Feels a little more in control, less out of control maybe. That this type of language around food tends to create stress and anxiety. And you oftentimes will hear people talking about food in a negative way in this way, and they're bonding over this. We bond over this sort of language around food. So I want you to think about that meal that we talked about earlier. I want you to think about how I described the meal. I talked about the texture, the taste, the color, the temperature. But some people might have been thinking about, when I was describing that meal, they might have been thinking, mac and cheese, bad. Chicken tenders, depends how they're cooked. Grilled and baked, good. Breaded and fried, bad. Broccoli, always good. Brownie, unhealthy, bad. That's how we tend to talk about food, most people. And this is where that stress and anxiety comes from, and that's what we do with it. But what if we could reimagine the way we think about food? What if we thought about food in a different way? What if we thought, bad food is actually bad. It's the food that you left on the counter all day. It's the food that's been in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. It's the moldy food. It's the food, again, you've left on the counter, it's growing bacteria. That is actually bad food. And then what if we thought about good food as food that tastes good, food that smells good, and food that feels good when you eat it? What if we thought about food in a different way? Would that help us feel less guilty about things? Maybe, but we also still might have an Aunt Sally who's making comments about our food intake and reminding us about that and questioning our own thoughts and how we eat, how we choose foods. And this may all sound a little bit dramatic, that these things can really have this impact, but I can specifically remember myself, when I was heading off to college, a friend's mother said, right as we were leaving for college, "Don't eat too much." Okay, what does that even mean? I'm not really sure. Okay. Now I'm worried about it, but I was already worried about things. I had my own internal worries, so I was already thinking about these things. So that person's comment didn't necessarily create my worry, but what it did was it fueled my worry, and then it made me more worried, and I started to think about it again, because now somebody else had made the comment. So that can happen. It creates that anxiety around the food, makes us more stressed about it. Something I want you to think about too is when we make these comments, they do have a lasting impact on people, because it can also impact how they feel about having a meal with you. And that could impact that in that way too. So again, when you're thinking about making a comment about somebody else's food, I want you to think about a few things. I want you to think, these comments do have a lasting impact, and they could be something that could create stress for somebody around food, and that may also, again, make them want to share a meal with you again. And truly, if we're being honest, those meals are about the connections that we make. Something else I want you to think about is that somebody else's food choices are really none of our business. So we want to make sure that we are aware of that. So even though someone might feel like they're being helpful or showing concern, but reality is that's creating more stress for that individual. And I want you to think, before you maybe make a comment to somebody else, is this helpful or will it be harmful? Something to think about. And I want to leave you with some strategies if you are somebody who has endured these types of comments. I would like you to think about ways that you can get through those encounters without feeling bad. One way you could do it is you could take that comment and let it roll off your back. You could ignore it. Easier said than done, right? But I know you could do it. With just a little bit of practice and time, you could work on that, ignoring that comment. Because really, and the reality is too, that comment is not really always, it's not about you. It's really about that other person. And you can also have some compassion for that person, where they're coming from, and where that comment came from, if you think about it that way. Another thing that you could do is you could say, just blatantly, "Please don't comment on my food. I'm going to eat this and I'm going to enjoy it." Or another way you can handle it is change the subject. Quickly, when that comment comes out, automatically start talking about the weather. Maybe you talk about a book you're reading. Maybe you talk about a new show you're watching. Whatever you need to do. But something I do want you to think about is the next time that you go to reach for that apple pie or reach for the seconds of your favorite meal, I really want you to feel good about the choices that you make. I want you to choose the food you enjoy and be confident in your choices because they're your choices. And just remember, those moments are more about the connections you're making with that person than the food sitting in front of you. Thank you.